Well, how has the world changed for women in the past century? The answer can be found in the lyrics of your favorite songs. A new book called Respect, Women in Popular Music looks through history at the evolving role of American women as seen and heard through the changing messages of pop music. The author, Dr. Dorothy Marcic, is joining us right now. It's nice to have you here. You're a local person who's written 12 books, but this one I think probably is geared more toward the masses perhaps than some of the others that you've written that are a little more business oriented. How'd you get the idea for this?
Well, I started using music in my leadership seminars to teach leadership, and then somebody asked me to do a seminar on equality of men and women, and I thought I'll use a little music. And as I did the research on music, I discovered that popular music tells the story of women in the 20th century, of their empowerment.
Yeah, it really does. And when you look back 100 years, you see that women were in a very different position than they are today.
From the time in 1900 when we went from being property of our husbands to the end of the century when we became presidents of corporations, it was quite a journey, and that's the voyage we'll take today. And you can see and hear how it happened by listening to Top 40.
And you know, a male chauvinist pig like me, 75 years old, I never, in my life it never would have occurred to me to evaluate or juxtapose the obvious evolution of women power in the society with the music. But once I read the book, it is there. It's right there.
And welcome back to More at Midday. The roles of women in our society have come a long way. Just listen to the music. 40 years ago, the voice of women in Top 40 music was one of, "I'll do anything for you no matter how you treat me." Well, times have changed, and now women demand to be treated with respect.
In my research on women's music, I took all the top 40 songs of women in the 20th century and analyzed the lyrics of the music. And then I developed categories, followed them throughout the century, and I mapped that onto women's progress. So in the early part of the century, when women basically had no rights, they couldn't vote, men could beat them, the songs were codependent, needy, and that even continued up to the 60s. And in the 60s, and it was about the time when the women's movement was beginning and the civil rights movement was there, the songs were angry. "You don't own me, these boots are made for walking." And in the 70s, when women were entering the workforce in the largest number of the whole century, is when songs came out like "I Am Woman." That was a song of strength. It was still angry because they were pushing back, but women wanted some more power. They got into the workforce and they found there was a lot of barriers there, a lot of glass ceilings. And following the angry phase, we went to the cynical phase, because anger showed us that life wasn't all a bed of roses and there wasn't happily ever after, there were no Prince Charmings. And so we had songs like Madonna's Material Girl and Tina Turner's What's Love Got to Do with It, or Janice Ian singing at 17, "I learned the truth at 17 that love was meant for beauty queens." And then in the late 80s, what my research showed is that the category that started to develop as the strongest one was inner strength. We had Whitney Houston saying, "Greatest love of all, I learned to depend on me, they can't take away my dignity." This was so much more strong than some of the earlier messages, which were about, "I will follow him," and "Johnny, get angry, I want a caveman, I want a brave man." And this was followed by Shania Twain. She had a number of songs, including "Any Man of Mine," that was about this strength and being my own person. And hers had a little sass to it, which was nice. And Mariah Carey had "Hero," which is about inner strength as well. The Betty Boop archetype is one that has persisted too, because Marilyn Monroe took it on in the 50s and early 60s, and the modern day Betty Boop is Britney Spears. In the 80s, there were two competing themes in women's music. One was the cry for Prince Charming, and the other was a desire, a realization, in fact, that there was no Prince Charming to save us from ourselves. And I think Madonna actually captured both of those. Most of the other songs had one or the other, but her song was strong. I don't need a Prince Charming, but at the same time, the words were saying, "I do." So she had it all in one song, which was pretty amazing. And again, I think that's one of the reasons it had such staying power.